Well, let's talk to Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, Senior Fellow of the U.S. Foreign Policy think tank Defense Priorities and the host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive YouTube channel and podcast, who was previously a senior U.S. Army officer. Daniel, thank you for joining us again. I don't know if you remember the Libyan bombing raid and Margaret Thatcher's role in that, but Keir Starmer's got a similar decision to make, hasn't he?
Well, he does. I do. I actually remember it quite well, and it was a huge disaster, as it turns out. Certainly for the people of Libya, it didn't solve any of the problems it was alleged to anyway, and that led to many other problems as well under the Obama administration. So these kinds of things rarely work out good. And look, the bottom line for this one is you got to start with the central question here. And I'm talking on the American side at the moment. What is the legal basis for this? Can we claim that because some number of protesters in another country have been killed because they were protesting against their government? And by the way, there's huge disputes on this number. 30, 40,000 is commonly referred to in the United States, but by name, the Iranian government has admitted there were 3,000, which by itself is a big issue that they admitted that. But the Americans, to the extent of former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, has admitted that the Mossad was on the ground to help with that. There was other potentially MI6, potentially CIA also involved with that. So there's all kinds of things that were helping to spawn that very thing. Then we said that we're going to use that as justification to go in. But there is nothing in international law that says if some country has killed some of their people and protesters, that other countries can on their own just choose to go and destroy that regime. There's no such law. If it's something that the people of the world, whether it's Britain, United States, Israel, et cetera, think that it's important enough, then you go to the United Nations, you get the Security Council resolutions, and then you have international backing, and then you can take action if your national countries support that. None of that has been done. We want it to be nice and easy. We don't like Iran. Let's go kill them all and knock the government out. And that's just the law of the jungle. And if we are going to support the rule of law as we claim, then we have to do it the right way, or we can't go in and just start willy-nilly bombing people. Now then you have this issue here specifically. The U.S. is basically on the start line, and then now Keir Starmer says, well, you can't use our base here. Now, I think that's probably, I'm just being honest with you, if I was a British citizen, I would be for that decision, because if this goes sideways and it's an unauthorized and illegal action, I wouldn't want my country to be involved with it anyway. So I think that it depends on what happens next as to whether Keir Starmer is going to suffer political loss at home or not. And I'm just telling you, from a military perspective, this has all kinds of opportunities to go sideways and very little chance to actually succeed at regime change.
That's really interesting, because who would be a prime minister in a situation like this? Because either if he says yes to Donald Trump, as I explained earlier, I think he would get the mother of all battles from his own political party. If he says no to Donald Trump, well, we know what Donald Trump is like, don't we? He doesn't forget things like that. And he's already gone back on saying the Chagos deal was a good deal. He now says it's a stupid deal again. And Britain can't go ahead with that deal unless, as I understand it, unless America agrees to it. So he's in a real bind, our Prime Minister, isn't he?
Well, he is, and listen, I'm just this is it's reminiscent of what we just did with the Danes and Greenland. We put them in this awful situation to where they have to either potentially put military force to defend against the United States taking Greenland, or be, quote, a loyal NATO ally and just let us take whatever we want. And President Trump didn't care anything about what that would do to the Prime Minister of Denmark on the ground in the NATO country, et cetera. It caused all kinds of problems. Some of this is a problem that Keir Starmer is going to have to navigate, because he has got pressure on both sides. But a lot of this is caused because President Trump has taken actions that doesn't seem to concern himself with our best allies. And right now we're putting UK in an awful situation here. We're violating our own Constitution and our own rule of law. We're not even pretending to follow international law. And now then we want UK to follow along without any question. And whatever consequences happen, we don't seem to care about that. And if we're going to be a good ally, we better start caring about that.
Well, what about being a good ally to the Iranian people who've been bravely protesting against their brutal regime? Because yet again, they are going to think the West has let them down if nothing happens.
Well, I would push back strongly against that because we had, again, in Senate testimony just a week or so ago, Secretary Treasurer Besson openly admitted that we destroyed their economy. Well, we've had it with these sanctions for a long time, but we specifically sank their currency for the purpose of causing uprising, which we then supported with Starlink terminals, a bunch of other things, apparently some weapons, intentionally to use the Iranian people as a casus belli to go in and attack. So it's not that it was all just naturally forming and that now we're trying to go help them and we're an ally. We're not an ally to the Iranian people that want to overthrow their government. That's their that's their issue. If they want to do that, that's their right to do so, and their government has to listen to their people or they have to suffer the consequences. It is neither our responsibility or authority to put it on ourselves to decide what country can and cannot stay in power and to just kill those we don't like. I mean, that is literally the law of the jungle. And I'm telling you, we're on the top right now, but that won't always be the case. And we won't want others applying that same law to our disadvantage later on.
You mentioned the concept of international law quite a bit in your first answer. I was watching an interview, I can't remember where it was the other day or even who it was with, and somebody mentioned international law to somebody, an analyst, and they said, oh, is that still a thing? Because it seems to me that, I mean, Donald Trump, I mean, his law is international law in his head, isn't it?
Well, it is, and there was, and I've used this on my YouTube show several times, where there's a compilation of a lot of people after we conducted this snatch and grab operation to completely illegally take the leader of Venezuela out, Nicolas Maduro, and there was all kinds of crowing in the U.S. media among many people. I'm talking about not just influencers, but also members of the House of Representatives and the Senate, saying there is no rule of law, there is no international law, it's the law of the jungle, and we're the lion. One particular person said it. So a lot of people bragging about that. And so that, of course, President Trump sees the support. And a lot of that's from the right and the left. So he isn't constrained by it. So as of the moment, I think that there is no genuine international law other than a piece of paper. And I'm telling you, that is bad, bad, bad for everybody when we allow somebody who has a lot of power and influence to just do what they want, because that kind of thing that goes on elsewhere. People start seeing, well, if it works for him, it can work for this guy here. And you don't want a case where the international peace is decided by who has the most power and can exert it over others, because eventually people get tired of that and they start pushing back and you get conflicts you should never otherwise have. And I'm telling you, this issue with Iran right now could blow up in our face, because it may not at all be this easy thing that a lot of people seem to think it is. And it could blow up in our face and kill a lot of Americans and a lot of Israelis.